Hey, hello. I'm Jim Barlow. I'm going to show you today how to take a Red Hat OpenShift cluster, add a workshop onto it, which is a demo workshop system deployed from GitHub that'll actually allow you to experiment with training a model to do X-ray analysis in a lab in order to train a model of AI to render some predictive analytics and assistance. It's a lot of fun, so let's get started. Okay, what I did is I got rid of my picture here so that I can show you more of what's going on the screen. So I've got a cluster that's been deployed by something called the Red Hat Product Demo System, RHPDS, and all this information is old information. This cluster is already gone before you see this, but I got my deployment information here. The tool we're going to use to deploy is called Agnostic D. It's at redhat.cop for Center of Practice. Agnostic D is an agnostic deployer, meaning it'll deploy on any kind of environment. Bare metal, it'll deploy on AWS, um, Google, IBM Cloud, Azure, the whole works. So Agnostic D is a beast of a program. It's actually a set of roles for Ansible, and it'll deploy in the infrastructure phase your infrastructure. I've already got that done. What my deployment was created actually using this technology. But now we're going to add a workload, a software phase, in order to provide our application environment. So the first thing I did is I modified this a little bit. So under Jim Barlow Agnostic D is a fork. It actually is a second layer fork, came through Red Hat SERTO. And in the machine learning branch, that's important, you can check this out, and it has all the setup we need to deploy. There's one workaround manually I have to show you, but this also features a little script that is not part of Agnostic D, but Agnostic D shows you how to do this to actually do the deployment. So we're going to start with that script. Um, Here's the script at the root level of the GitHub branch right here. The thing is, you need Ansible first. You can install this via Ansible installers, or I think this one I configured using pip and to get Ansible. I'm using 2.12.10. So just you can probably run just about any version of modern Ansible and make this work. You need to go into the Ansible directory. So this is from a previous instance. I need to have the proper Bastion host. I'm going to edit that and put in my new Bastion, which is right here. Lab user is the name. Now I'm going to deploy in this Bastion. So my local laptop is going to SSH in through a key so that it can execute the playbooks on this Bastion host, which already has a user that's logged into OpenShift. You don't need the Bastion host if you want to use your own system here in lieu of that Bastion host, but you would need to do an OC login, OpenShift command login, as your cluster admin privileged user so that the commands can be run from your laptop. But for me, it makes a lot of sense to do it this way. This is the workload. This is how we specify what part of Agnostic D we're going to use. It's called OCP4-workload-machine learning. The GUID is a global unique identifier that we use in order to provision these clusters so there's no conflict. Um, GUID here, let's set this always on top. Let me bring up my notes here. What here is this. Probably more importantly, a type module, I don't think that's even used anymore. I keep it in there for good luck. I'm telling you I want 4 workshop users. The key, I'm going to need to change the key here, so I'll just go CTK, change to K, and put that same prefix here. The repository owner, this should be left as M. Solberg, Michael Solberg, because he wrote the handout, if you will, or the guide that we're going to use. Now, once we have all these defined, the Ansible playbook command will be run against the target host. It could be localhost or this bastion. And then it's going to use these environment variables here represented on the command line in order to do the deployment. So yeah, I'm using US AWS 2 East 2. That's probably not that important if you're not using Amazon. I am. Okay, so the thing I need to do before I run this is I need to make sure this key exists. So I'm going to take this key and copy that, vim, and I'm going to paste that key. Okay, and I've got a private key I got to put in here. This has to match what's in Amazon. So what I'm going to do is go to that bastion and copy that private key out of there. So the best bet is go SSH lab user at my bastion, which is here. Put the @ in there. And it wants a password, which is right here. And password login won't do. That's why we need this key, because we need passwordless login for the Ansible playbook. No, I should make it lab user, not lib user. Okay. .ssh is where these keys are, and I need to cat this. I'm going to grab this private key here. Copy it into here. Now, if you're copying from a Linux to a Windows system, watch out here, because this is Linux, and we got line feeds terminating these lines, not carriage return line feeds. So if you paste into a Windows terminal session, you will get extraneous, invisible carriage return characters that'll make sure your key doesn't work. Okay, and I'm going to try the login one more time and specify. Oh, one thing. I need to change the characteristics, the permissions on that key. And this is HR. All right, so now I should be able to go here. Specify with a -I. I want a private key. Yeah, we're in, so that works. Okay, so I don't have to worry about it anymore. Now we can do the workshop deployment with a script. So I'm going to go and execute workshop deploy. All right, now we're cooking. So in the meantime, we're going to go ahead and log in to the console. The console is already up and going. So here's my console for the cluster. And this Ansible role is creating lab users, and it's also going to create some Kubernetes operators that'll deploy the components we need. So I'm logged in as Lab Manager to look at my projects. These are all the projects in the cluster, and I can take a look at Labs Infra. Okay. Now what's going on here is that there's a loop going on to wait until this operator comes up. And the contrast is really poor here. What I'm going to do is take a look at the operators, installed operators in all projects. Okay, we got our serverless, which we want. AMQ Streams is installing and upgrading. And the one little snag we have is that we're using a slightly backdated Open Data Hub operator. It needs to be 1.3 rather than the current 1.4. And it requires manual intervention to approve the install. Okay, so here it is. Open Data Hub operator. Okay, here's what you see here is where my mouse is. It requires an approval. I'm going to click on that. And we had to use a manual installation process here, or manual intervention, to use their older version. So I'm going to preview the install plan and approve. That'll allow the workshop deployment to complete in short order. Okay, we have finished the workshop deployment. Now the play says here, post task completed successfully. Now if you go here into the right location, here's how we can get into the console. But to test the workshop out, we'll want to run a couple pages of it. Here is the get a username for the labs. So I'm going to copy this, copy it. I'm going to log out of the cluster here. I don't need to be administrator. And then I'm going to paste this. Okay, now I am going to log in. Password was also represented in the playbook output. And I'm user 1, and here's the password. Here's my module. I'm going to actually log in here too with that same user 1. Okay, I'm going to put this over here, and I'm going to go ahead and skip the tour. Okay, so I'm user 1 with a notebook. Here's my instructions. First thing I need to do, type user 1 right up here at the top. And that fills in environment variables sprinkled throughout, so my copy and paste of commands is an automatic experience. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is see if we can get the Open Data Hub software working, which includes the Apache, Airflow, Kafka, Spark, Grafana, Jupyter Hub, Prometheus, and others. And the way we'll do that is we will do it from the console. We're going to go in and tell the software that we want to deploy Open Data Hub. And when I go here, I will go into my notebook. I'm in topology. I don't see anything. Nothing's been deployed yet. So what I need to do is add, and I'll select all services, and I'll look for data hub. There's the Open Data Hub that I want. We'll create that. And we don't want to hit create here. We want to replace the YAML, the payload of what the operator is going to deliver here. So I'm going to delete all this YAML out because there's a refined set of YAML requirements, which doesn't invoke all the unnecessary parts, keeps the size of it down. And if I go back to my documentation, here's the YAML that I want. I will Control C and Control V that right into its nesting place here. Hit create. And after some moments, we should see topological representations of the pieces of the Open Data Hub that are being deployed. Here it is. There's Grafana, there's Jupyter Hub, traffic is part of that. There's an Open Data Hub dashboard. So this is working. To run the rest of the workshop, we would just follow the instructions here. And this labs guide is what is installed by that comment where we saw M. Solberg in the playbook. But that, fellow technologists, is how you deploy the workshop. Hope that helps.